Hey guys, Tactical Pogue here. Today I thought I'd bring you a fairly short review of my Glock 42, which I have been carrying for quite some time. It was not my first carry gun. It's actually been, I think it's my third carry gun, and I've stuck with it that long because of the fact that I love it so much. I originally went for it because of its size. I was aware that they had the Glock 43 out, and I don't really get into the whole, what caliber do I prefer the best, but, you know, I usually go for, what can I shoot the most comfortable and most efficient with. And, I felt like the 42 was a good choice. 42 was a good choice because of the fact that, it's still one of the main, center fire pistol cartridges, in my opinion. I think it only goes up from 380. I know a lot of people say, they won't carry anything below a 9, but for me the 380 was a good choice. I don't regret it. I still carry it to this day. I'm actually looking into getting another 380. I believe Ruger has their LCP2 in 380, which I think I handled at my local gun shop, and I liked it a lot. So 380 by all means is not a bad cartridge. It just matters on what kind of load you carry. Now I'm just going to go into some pros and cons of the Glock 42. Obviously, the obvious pros are the fact that it's small, concealable. There's a huge aftermarket because of the fact that Glock is such a big brand nowadays. There is a huge amount of aftermarket parts that you can get for it. There's aftermarket triggers, aftermarket magazine release. Like you see in here, I have a Pierce grip extension just so that I can get a full grip on it. And by the way, this weapon has been safety checked, so none of you safety sallies have to worry about a thing, unless you're afraid of getting shot through a monitor. But yes, and it rides on a very reputable brand, which is Glock. All those are really good pros, and the main two that stuck out to me was the fact that it was small and super concealable. Not a very big guy. I'm 5'8". I weigh about a buck 40. Before the Glock 42, I used to carry an HK45C, and making the transition from a quote unquote compact 45 ACP to a very small 380 pistol was a very smooth transition because of how comfortable it was. I mean, when I first started carrying it, it was so small that I didn't even realize. I sometimes would forget that I was even carrying it. Now, I'm going to go over some of the cons here, and some of these cons may not be, may not be true for some people. It hasn't been, some of these hasn't been true, well, at least one of these hasn't been true for me, and that is stovepipe. I've never gotten any malfunctions out of my Glock 42, and that is why I carry it, because what's the point in carrying a not reliable gun if you're carrying it to protect yourself with or your family members with? So for me, there has never been a malfunction in the gun, even during like the so to say recommended break-in period. But I did notice how if my wife handles it, she won't be able to shoot like 3 rounds straight without getting a stovepipe. And I told her, have a more firm grip on it. Don't limp wrist it, because if you know anything about Glocks, if you limp wrist them, they will malfunction. They will stovepipe. So it's not really, so to say, blame the gun, but for inexperienced shooters, that don't know so much to, on how to handle, weapons, on how to shoot handguns and proper techniques on, different varieties of guns, it will stovepipe on them. Another con is a price. There's a lot of great 380s out there nowadays. And the Glock is a little bit more expensive than the others. Yes, you got 6 hours P238s, which I think start off from 600. Yeah, I don't even look at those. But the Glock, compared to the M&P Bodyguard, I think, Ruger LCP2, which is from the feels of it that I got, is an outstanding gun. Glock 42s generally go for about $400 and up. And while I was lucky to get mine under $400 because I got the Blue Label discount, price might be something that, you know, makes some other people, you know, reconsider the purchase. Another con is the trigger. Glocks tend to come with very shitty factory triggers, and this isn't the first Glock that I've owned. I actually had a Glock 19. I still have a Glock 19 now, and I remember when I first shot it and dry fired it at the store, I described it as a staple gun. It literally felt like, you know, shooting a staple gun, and it couldn't be any more true for the Glock 42 either. But there are a couple ways to, you know, solve that problem. Like I said, in the cons, there's a lot of aftermarket parts. For me, I put a trigger connector in there. It's the Ghost 3.5 pound trigger connector, but it's not 3.5 pounds. It might bring it down to like 5 pounds or 4.5 if you're lucky. But one of the other things you can do, which should be done from the factory, is, you know, polish the metal surfaces of the trigger bar and the parts that, you know, have friction in them. And another thing is the sights. I never really cared for the Glock sights. It never really jumped out to me like, oh, those are actually pretty decent sights from the factory. No, in fact, they're really shitty sights from the factory. Not a lot of people like it, actually. That's the truth. And a lot of people would just rather have, you know, metal sights from the factory. And, you know, for me, the Glock 42 sights have never really failed me. I can shoot well with it, but, you know, I would honestly like it if, you know, it came with a pair of metal sights. I know they do offer those, but it costs more money. I think it should just be a standard from the factory. What is this gun really best suited for? There's a couple things. It can be best suited for backup gun. If you carry something like a 45 or a 9mm or a 40 Smith & Wesson as your primary weapon for self-defense, you know, you could have this in your, I don't know, ankle or whatnot. And if you do decide to carry this as a main concealed carry weapon, then it is kind of what you would call a deep concealment gun because of the fact that it's so small. And that's really where it shines. And that's where what I carry it for. I carry it in this Blade Tech, I think this is Kydex or some kind of plastic holster. You know, it just really guards the trigger guard and guards the trigger and doesn't let it be actuated. And I really like it. For paying for $20, I'm happy with it. And I've never, you know, there's never been a time where I felt like I was going to accidentally pull the trigger, because first thing about, you know, accidental discharges is keep your finger off the trigger. The number one reason that this gun really appealed to me when I was looking for a concealed carry is the 380 ACP size appeal. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll explain this. There are guns in 9mm that are subcompact, and you can really look at them and be like, you know, wow, that is really small. And then you look at their 380 counterparts, and then you're like, oh my gosh, that is micro small. And, you know, that was one of the things that really appealed to me about the 380s, is because of how cool they are. You know, they're so small, but yet so, you know, potent. They got like a little punch to it, you know, not as big of a punch as a 9mm or a 40 or a 45, but, you know, it's still, you know, something that I would consider one of the main centerfire cartridges. And I know with 380 there's, you know, issues with, you know, under penetration. And, you know, with rounds that do expand, that's what you get, under penetration. With rounds that really expand reliably, you get under penetration. And a Full Metal Jacket, you always tend to get over penetration. And there's never really been a good compromise in between those two until, like, I guess, like, Lehigh Defense came out with, like, you know, their extreme penetrator bullets that, you know, looks like a cross from the front view. But, you know, as long as you choose the right load, you know, I think it's a reliable piece for a concealed carry and primary concealed carry weapon for self-defense. And, you know, I'd hate to say this because a lot of people are going to probably call me an idiot or whatnot, but this is my favorite carry gun. And, you know, like a lot of the famous people on YouTube say, the first thing about, you know, first rule about a gunfight is to have a gun. and you know, I just started living by that, you know, ever since I stopped carrying my HK45C. And you know, I'll probably never go back to a gun that's any significantly bigger than the 42. I might look at the 43. I do like the fact that, you know, with the 43 you got the 9mm, and 9mm is a whole lot cheaper than 380. It's like literally half the price of 380 ammo. But you know, maybe that's something in the future. But overall, I was really happy with it, and this is literally my baby, so to say, figuratively. But thanks for watching, guys, and this was Tactical Pogue, and I hope you enjoyed my not so short, but it looks like it's about 10 minutes, but I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Thank you.